Welcome back to the stock portfolio update videos. Currently, my two stock portfolios sit at a combined value of over $83,247. That's made up of the $49,000 in my stake portfolio and the $34,000 in my Vanguard portfolio. Overall, my stake portfolio has been in the green quite a bit recently as the stocks market has traded up, and I'm now up 34.38%. or $12,541. My Vanguard portfolio has also seen good gains as I edge closer and closer to hitting that $35,000 mark. Today I wanted to speak about how I plan to hit $100,000 before the end of the year. As you can see, not much of my holdings has changed, and overall I pretty much need around $16,500 roughly to hit that $100,000 mark. Overall, I do have money outside of these two stock portfolios I share, obviously, but inclusive of that money, I want to hit $100,000. In regards with these stock portfolios, the goal is to get them to hopefully around, if I can hit $90,000 before the end of the year, just combined with these two, I'd be over the moon. I'm tracking quite well as stocks have traded up, and having a quick look through the portfolio, you can see many of my main holdings, such as VOO, which is my biggest holding, which tracks the S&P 500, has had a pretty strong 6 months, up nearly 14%, and its year is up 40%, making it quite expensive at the moment, having one of the best years the S&P has actually had. I saw it in an article comparing all these previous years, and it has shot up this year, up 40%, so no matter kind of where you've been investing, more than likely your portfolio is in the green this year. But that does lead to potential drawbacks in terms of the PE ratio is getting quite high for a lot of these stocks, and it's just harder to find things on a discount. But my goal is to look long term. Again, I've rode it through 2021, having great times in my stock portfolio, up 20%, all the way to adding to positions and being down over 20% in 2022, and I've since seen money come back and the gains as I've continued to dollar cost average into my portfolio. And now this portfolio is actually getting very close to hitting $50,000, which will be a really nice goal for myself on that journey to $100,000. Again, looking at my next biggest holding, Microsoft, and if you have a look at the last month, it is actually down, and even the last 6 months has not traded up that much. It still had a positive year, but obviously underperforming the S&P, but 30% in a year, you cannot complain. And with this drawback, a lot of people have thought about it as potential times to add to their Microsoft positions, but I've just been sitting still. It takes up, we'll show a bit later, I think it's close to 17% of my US portfolio already, and then you already get exposure into it in the S&P. So I feel like I have enough skin in the game, and my total equity is getting closer to $6,000 at the moment, USD. Having looked through some of the other holdings, this is when it gets a little bit smaller. Obviously, Apple's my next biggest, and it's had a decent year as well, up 38%, and my equity is sitting around $4,200, and I'm up 62% on Apple. So it was actually the first stock I ever bought, and I've kind of just been holding it. It had a bit of a rough term in this last middle of the year kind of time, and it's bounced back in these last, if you just look at the last 6 months, it's up 37%. So it's really made up those gains. I know lots of people were selling Apple. I actually mentioned it in one of my videos that I planned on holding it because it's one of those stocks where if you don't do anything with it and I was to come back in 5 years, I think that'd still be a great business printing money. So I try to look past the short-term volatility and kind of keep a bit more of a long-term outlook with my investing. Having a look into my Vanguard portfolio, this is actually where I've been putting the majority of my money. Especially with the weak AUD to USD conversion, it does feel nicer putting it into Vanguard, and I also don't get as many fees. So when I put money into my stake portfolio, I obviously get transaction fees, I get exchange rates, so it can kind of feels like it's diminishing my buying power, where when I put it into my Vanguard portfolio, there's no fees whenever I put an investment in, only when you sell, and that's a very small fee. So I'm really not complaining. Vanguard has made it quite easy for me to build this portfolio, and I only have two holdings. It's very simple. VLC, which tracks the largest companies here in Australia, and VGS, which tracks the largest companies internationally. They don't offer a S&P tracking ETF that I can buy on here, but VGS is pretty much the closest next thing I can get. Obviously, the returns aren't as good because it has a lot of exposure to a broader range of companies. As you can see, 1,500. It's very diversified, but it is still heavy in America, the weighting. So if we have a quick look at the holdings, it's had a 23% year, which is very good, but many of the big ones I already hold, such as Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, Amazon, Meta, Alphabet. So all these big holdings, which I already have exposure to, it is where this holding kind of has. And then it also just has broader range ones as well. So here it shows you large, medium, everything, mainly North America, but some Europe, some Pacific, things like that. So yeah, it just kind of helps me diversify a little bit. But overall, my other holding, VLC, is just the largest companies here in Australia. So up 23%. It's had an amazing year. If you have a look at any of the banking stocks in Australia, so the likes of Westpac, Commonwealth Bank, NAB, ANZ, Macquarie, they've all had amazing years, traded up in the green. I think last time I saw Westpac stock, it was up something like 40%. So this has heavily jumped. A 23% year is massive for investors, which means potentially in the future things might correct a little bit. You might have slower years, but I'm just trying to make the most out of it now and just build positions for the long term. Because when I look at the holdings for this, you can see BHP, which hasn't actually had a very good year, CBA, CSL, and then a lot of those banks which I was just referencing. But overall, the reason why I used to hold VAS, I might, when it comes to the new year, I'll do another video kind of breaking down each of my investments and kind of deciding what I want to do with them, and what ones I want to keep, if I want to make any changes. But at the moment, these two ETFs have kind of given me a nice little bit of diversification, and they've performed quite well. So I get Australian exposure and international exposure. In terms of with my stake portfolio, I will try to get this to 50, so I will invest a little bit more money coming up soon. I did start a new job recently, so I will be earning a little bit more income, which will be nice, and I'll hopefully be able to transfer that into these accounts so I can just keep growing it and hit that $90,000 mark. That's the next goal I want to tick off. So again, another around $6,500, which is very doable before the end of the year, hopefully, and bearing the market has good returns as well. That and me putting money in, hopefully I can hit that before the end of the year. Having a quick look at the portfolios through Excel, you can see I've updated this just to kind of show the weightings a little bit better. So you can see the S&P takes up the majority of my American portfolio, over 50%, it's 52%. And then we have the likes of Microsoft, which is a big one, Apple, and then kind of the smaller ones, the likes of Amazon, JP Morgan, Costco. Then we have my Australian portfolio, which is pretty much 60-40 between the international and Australia. And this is a little bit outdated because obviously I only update it at the end of the month or the start of the new month. So this is all the balances from the start of the month, and you can see I've almost added, what's that, $2,600 in my stake portfolio already in growth, and my Vanguard portfolio is up, give or take, another 3,000. So it's been a massive month for me, which will be really good when I get to update these, because you could see there was a little dip in my stake portfolio, but my Vanguard portfolio has been like a rocket going up. So what this is going to do is lead to more gains, hopefully, in terms of compound interest and even bigger dividends. Speaking of dividends, you can see here I track my dividends per month, just the ones I've received. I'm not a dividend investor by any means, but it is nice to get them and just reinvest my dividends when they come into my account, and then hopefully the snowball effect, the bigger they get, the more stock I can buy with them, and then maybe even one day I can take some of this money out to put towards a house, or maybe just keep it in there towards my retirement as passive income. But that's kind of a buzzword at the moment. But this is kind of how the dividends are tracking. It's been pretty good. I got my quarterly distribution from my Vanguard portfolio as well. It was a bit less than I expected. It was only $180, I believe, which was quite disappointing. I thought it was going to be over 200, especially with how much the portfolio has grown. But I'm still going to hit over $1,000 in dividends this year. So that was nice to tick off, but I was kind of hoping to hit that with just my Vanguard account. But including my stake, I'm actually probably going to get closer to, my assumption would be around, give or take, 1,200, 1,300 in dividends this year, which is not bad. But yes, going back to the portfolios, overall, I just kind of wanted to update. It's been quite busy for me in my personal life with outside things, so I haven't been able to do much videos, but the channel is still tracking on. I've had 2 videos do quite well, one with around 2,200 views for one of these portfolio updates, and another one with close to 1,000, which is might not sound like the most, but it's quite good for me. I think I'm sitting around 871 subscribers, so getting close to the 900 mark, and then hopefully I can tick off 1,000 subscribers next year, or if I manage to somehow hit it before the end of the year, that'd be big as well. But the goal is just to hit it in the first part of next year, as I'll get to put more time into these videos, just kind of doing these updates and keeping people up to track. And I like doing them to hold myself accountable, because I've been doing these videos since my portfolio was like $10,000. So now that we're up at 83,000, it's good to look back and I can see my predictions and where I went right, where I went wrong, and just kind of learn from my mistakes as I build these portfolios out. But that's all for now, and thank you for watching.